So page 637, Proverbs 3, verse 13. Blessed are those who find wisdom, those who gain understanding, for she is more profitable than silver and yields better returns than gold. She is more precious than rubies. Nothing you desire can compare with her. Long life is in her right hand, in her left hand are riches and honour. Her ways are pleasant ways, and all her paths are peace. She is a tree of life to those who take hold of her. Those who hold her fast will be blessed. By wisdom the Lord laid the earth's foundations. By understanding he set the heavens in place. By his knowledge the watery depths were divided, and the clouds let drop the dew. My son, do not let wisdom and understanding out of your sight. Preserve sound judgment and discretion. They will be life for you, an ornament to grace your neck. Then you will go on your way in safety, and your foot will not stumble. When you lie down, you will not be afraid. When you lie down, your sleep will be sweet. Have no fear of sudden disaster or of the ruin that overtakes the wicked, for the Lord will be at your side and will keep your foot from being snared. Do not withhold good from those to whom it is due, when it is in your power to act. Do not say to your neighbour, "Come back tomorrow and I'll give it to you," when you already have it. Do not plot harm against your neighbour who lives trustfully near you. Do not accuse anyone for no reason when they have done you no harm. Do not envy the violent or choose any of their ways, for the Lord detests the perverse and takes the upright in his confidence. The Lord's curse is on the house of the wicked, but he blesses the home of the righteous. He mocks proud mockers, but he shows favour to the humble and oppressed. The wise inherit honour, but fools get only shame.
This morning, we've got a slide to go up, I think, gentle. Thanks to Luke at the 11th hour getting those up for us. Brilliant. We've got a short passage this morning, just a part of what John's read, so that he's given us a little appetite whetter as well for after half term. But this morning we're just looking at verses 13 to 20, and it's one of those things I think we said that there are 10 instructions in the first 9 chapters from a father to a son, and there are 5 times where wisdom seems to just sort of come onto the stage, and there's almost like a little pause in proceedings, and we think about wisdom. So this is one of those. Some people describe these verses, particularly the ones on the wall from 13 to 18, as a poem about wisdom. So we're just going to think about that for a few minutes this morning. And I know when you look, I presume if you go to university and do English or something, looking at the structure of the poem probably just takes all of the beautiful sort of artistic brilliance out of it in a way. So I'm not going to say too much about structure, but I have tried to put that up just in a way that helps you to see the way the poem flows. So the fact that the word blessed or blessed is there in verses 13 and 18 kind of tells us that this poem is about the blessed life. The blessed life, and all the sort of contents focus on that. So a really blessed life is the life of the person who finds wisdom in verse 13, or who holds fast to wisdom in verse 18. Now, you may have come across this word blessed from the Beatitudes in the New Testament. Blessed are the poor in spirit and so on. And people struggle to define what this word blessed actually means. So some just simply go for happy. Some go for to be congratulated, the blessed life, you've found real life. One person who I was looking at this week described it as those who experience life optimally. So the person that experiences life as God the Creator intends it, that's the blessed person. We think as God wants us to think, we speak as God wants us to speak, we behave as God wants us to behave, we relate as God wants us to relate, our heart is inclined in the way that God wants our heart to be inclined. That's the optimal life, the blessed life. And the person that has the blessed life is the person that finds wisdom, according to verse 13, or holds fast to wisdom verse 18. So I think it's useful just to think, we're quite familiar, aren't we, at the moment with this idea of living your best life. So if you hadn't noticed, I'm being really clever with the title here. Living your best life is something that we hear a lot about today. The adverts, trailers in the cinema, the new phone that you can just fold in half. And the way that the advert's done is you get that phone, you will live your best life. Look how much fun they're having in this trailer. This person who can fold their phone in half, they're living their best life. It's all over the place. But I wonder what comes to your mind when you think, what does the best life look like? Who would I really like to be? So Esther recently, to my surprise, has started watching the Beckham documentaries on Netflix. And that was surprising because she's not really interested in sport. But as I walked in and out of the room, now and then I'd see the odd little clip I remember from the day when he scored that particular goal. I have a real connection because of when he played and the age I was. We were both outstanding footballers, both incredibly handsome. So I had a real connection with Beckham when I was younger. So I have now watched it. There's a scene, I don't know how you feel about clothes, but there's a scene in the interview where they go into the house where he lives and he opens up one of his wardrobes. And I don't know how many there were, 30, 40, 50 jackets on this rail in this wardrobe that just sort of opened without sound. It was just beautiful. And underneath, 50 pairs of trousers, and then in wardrobe number 2, which was also massive, were sort of shirts, T-shirts, and it was like the colours moved through, I guess, some sort of colour wheel all the way along, grouped together. The sock drawer was just incredible. And he actually had fabrics in his wardrobe where it was like you're buying a carpet, when you sort of move the carpets to look at the different shades. So he'd got a range of browns he could do, and then he could match those with these greys. And over in the corner of this sort of dressing room wardrobe was a rail with the 7 outfits for the next 7 days, all perfectly matched and ready. So if you love clothes and you're looking at that, you're probably thinking, well, that's the dream. That would just be living my best life, to have that to choose from every day. That's not me, as you may have gathered. I remember playing badminton as a youth worker years ago, and I had a blue sweatshirt with some bleach on from the time when I'd been cleaning the sink. I loved this top so much, I just wore it all the time. And this little youngster who was in our badminton club said, "How many of those tops have you got?" Because literally just wore it all the time. So that doesn't particularly appeal to me, although I was amazed, at this. But if clothing is your thing, you could be thinking, wow, that's just the dream life. Who comes to mind for you when you think about, if I was to be living my best life, that's the life I would be living? It could be the Beckhams, could be the Kardashians maybe, it could be pop star, musician, travelling the world, doing what they do. Maybe that's the thing. Could be a sports star. It could be having some sort of romantic relationship. That would be living my best life. Maybe that's what's sort of in your heart. There's so many things, aren't there? Having a comfortable home, being able to go on holidays or whatever. Living your best life. According to this poem, blessed, truly blessed, is the one who finds wisdom, verse 13, or who holds fast to wisdom, verse 18. And the sort of sandwich of the poem really focuses, firstly, verses 14 and 15 on the value of wisdom, and then 16 and 17 on the rewards of wisdom. So the writer says in verse 14 about wisdom's, how profitable it is and how precious it is. Verse 14, she's more profitable than silver. She yields better returns than gold. She's more precious than rubies. Nothing you desire can compare with her. That's the value of wisdom. Long life is in her right hand. In her left hand are riches of all kinds. Honour, her ways are pleasant, her paths are peace. She's a tree of life to those who take hold of her. The writer here is trying to, when we found this in our growth group, it's quite difficult how do you define wisdom? What actually is it? Our groups had difficulty with that, and you can list, and Proverbs has a number of words, doesn't it? Knowledge, understanding, insight, discretion, wisdom. They're all kind of sort of different aspects of the same thing. Hard to pin down. What the writer's doing here is trying to express the worth of wisdom through imagery or comparing wisdom with the most valuable things. So when the writer was writing, he could say that wisdom is more profitable than silver, holding silver up as that thing that is hugely profitable in the day that they were writing. Wisdom yields better returns even than gold. And then the writer's thinking of, what's precious, things about precious stones, rubies, more precious even than rubies, trying to sort of show us how profitable and valuable wisdom is. Saw a film recently called Dumb Money. I don't know if anybody has seen that or heard about it. It's based on a company in America called GameStop, and it was all in the news apparently at the time. I missed it, but Henry, my son, was all over it following the story. I guess it's like Game in this country, sort of selling computer games and stuff like that. And I should have written down the name of this man, but he worked for a small financial company and sort of did a bit of trading on the stock market and so on, and felt that this company, GameStop, was being undervalued by the people that do these things. I'm literally Grant. I've listened to what Grant does, but I hang on to this sort of buying and selling and stocks and shares and all that. Don't really get it. But he, in his spare time, he had a basement in his house and his computer screens, and he was on YouTube. He had I don't know what his name was. Someone Kitty. He had cats on his green screen behind him all the time. But he would show all of his financial workings on the green screen behind him and talk his few YouTube followers through what he was doing, how he was convinced that this company was being undervalued. And so convinced, and his wife was a bit nervous about this, but he put his whole life savings into GameStop. And because of his YouTube thing and his cats, he began to get a bit of a following. And so more people began to listen to what he was saying, and they began to put their money into GameStop. This is 2020, 2021, so quite recent. And essentially then, TikTokers would then post TikToks on the back of his YouTube with clips and so on. This thing just went around America. And more people are putting money into GameStop. And eventually, just to spoil the ending, the film flits between the billionaires on Wall Street who lost 1 billion yesterday and have lost 1 billion today, and then they're following all of these people that are following Kitty, whatever his name is, on YouTube, and their profits are going into the thousands, the hundreds of thousands. And at one stage there's a bit where he's having a meal with his family, and his brother's taking the mickey out of him for his bit of trading and his YouTube thing, and he then announces to the table that he's now worth $23 million, which they can't believe, and that everyone's urging him to sell. Anyway, it all goes to the Supreme Court and stuff in America. But the whole sort of sense of, where is value to be found? Put your money into this thing. Look at what it can lead to. This poem about wisdom is even saying that wisdom is more profitable than silver, yields more returns, better returns, even than GameStop in the early 2020s. More precious than rubies. In fact, nothing you desire can compare with her and what she can do. That's the sort of sense that's in this poem. She is beyond comparison. I told Henry yesterday that I'd seen read an article that the new Super Mario game had been released, I think the day before yesterday. And you could see the excitement, the waiting for a game to come out, waiting for that moment of playing it, of enjoying it, of devouring it, something that thrills the heart. I was asking a couple of people before this talk today about some of the things maybe that appeal to them, and Mike mentioned his action figures. Can you imagine that sort of moment of discovering, maybe not I'm sure Mike, I don't know if you're a car boot person, can you imagine if you stumbled across some real rare sort of action figure that had gone missing or something, you find it, the thrill that would go through your heart. Or maybe it's thinking about next summer, maybe you've thought about a holiday, you're beginning to rehearse in your mind what it will be like, what you'll do. Maybe you're beginning to dream about winning the Rugby World Cup and the Cricket World Cup. There's only, I think, one person in the room that could have that dream realised. Imagine. The writer's saying here that wisdom will yield better returns than anything else, is more precious than anything you could possibly desire or hope for. Now, what happens in verses 19 and 20 is a sudden shift. I think it's on the second slide. I don't know if any of you recently have submitted a CV, but it's as if verses 19 and 20, the writer, having made these amazing claims about wisdom, being better than everything and can yield better things, then goes into what I thought was like a CV mode. So you're applying for a job and you've got to put together this CV. You're essentially looking to convince the person that's going to read this that you are the best person for this job. So you put on there, I could walk at 10 months, way earlier than the average. I had teeth coming through, before I was, whatever. And then eventually I did this exam and I've got these qualifications, and then I've done this job and that job and the other job, and I've done all of these things. You're essentially saying, I am the person that you want here. I'm the best person for this job. Well, verse 19, we go into CV mode and we're told that by wisdom, the Lord laid the earth's foundations. By wisdom, the Lord laid the earth's foundations. By understanding, he set the heavens in place. By his knowledge, the watery depths were divided, land began to appear, and the clouds let drop the dew. You think back to those things that we desire and the things that can yield good things for us, gold, silver, rubies. Which of them could it be said that by that thing, God actually laid the foundations of this world and this cosmos by wisdom, by understanding, by knowledge? And if wisdom can do that, what could it do in us? That's, I think, the question that this is left with. I'm going to read you this. I thought this was great when I first read it. So let me read it to you. We have been told that the universe just happened. We have been told that we emerged out of a primordial goo by sheer luck. But the truth is, God created all things. And the tool he used was his own wisdom. It was all he needed. The Lord, by wisdom, founded the earth. At this very moment, he sustains, note the present tense, drop down in verse 20. He sustains all things, even the dewdrops, or the rain, by his wisdom. Dr. John Piper wrote about this rain in a Thanksgiving meditation a few years ago. I'm going to quote now what John Piper wrote. It's just great. Picture yourself as a farmer in the Near East, far from any lake or stream. A few wells keep the family and animals supplied with water. But if the crops are to grow and the family is to be fed from month to month, water has to come on the fields from another source. From where? Well, the sky. Water will come out of the clear blue sky. Well, not exactly. Water will have to be carried in the sky from the Mediterranean Sea over several hundred miles and then poured out from the sky onto the fields. Carried? How much does it weigh? Well, if 1 inch of rain falls on 1 square mile of farmland during the night, that would be 27,878,400 cubic feet of water, which is 206,300,160 gallons, which is 1.65 billion pounds of water. That's heavy. So how does it get up in the sky and stay up there if it's so heavy? Well, it gets up there by evaporation. It means that the water sort of stops being water for a while so it can go up and not down. Then how does it get down? Well, condensation happens. The water starts becoming water again by gathering around little dust particles between 0.0001 and 0.0001 centimetres wide. Pretty small. What about the salt? The Mediterranean Sea is salt water. That would kill the crops. What about the salt? Well, the salt has to be taken out. So the sky picks up 1 billion pounds of water from the sea, takes out the salt, then carries it 300 miles and then dumps it onto the farm. Well, it doesn't dump it. If it dumped 1 billion pounds of water on the farm, the wheat would be crushed. So the sky dribbles the 1 billion pounds of water down in little drops. The point is, if God, by his wisdom, can work that wonder in nature, what will he accomplish by his wisdom in you? I thought that was amazing. It took me right back to primary school and colouring in the water cycle. But that, again, just illustrates, doesn't it? It's astonishing. God, by his wisdom, laid the earth's foundations. By understanding, set the heavens in place. By his knowledge, the watery depths were divided, and the clouds let down the dew. Just on the last slide, just 3 quick thoughts on application. Can I encourage you this week? I know for some it's a normal week, for others it's half term and there may be different things going on. I think when I read this sort of poem, and I just thought, just look, see. When we were in Australia, one of the best things in the first year is that it was just permanently summer. And having come from many years here, this was amazing. In the first year, we had more days over 20 degrees in winter than under 20 degrees. The sky was a blue I just feel like I've never seen in my life. That sort of white ceiling we have on us most of the time was just not there. It's just blue, and a blue that I just felt I'd never seen, and miles of this blue, and just permanently warm. It was just amazing. It was fantastic. And the first year back in England, the most amazing thing was moving from one season to another season to another season to another season. When I drove, as I do, I try to play golf badly most Wednesday mornings, driving up the hill from Redbourne to Harpenden in this next month, we'll see more shades of brown and red and green, and just the tree line, the shade, that is just astonishing. And so this partly what this poem has left me with is open your eyes, see wisdom. See wisdom in the colours. See wisdom in nature all around us. Look around. When you go to science, I know you don't want to think about science for this week, but when you go back into your science lessons after that, see that science is discovering and has been discovering some bits about the enormity that is God's wisdom. The things that we've been able to learn and see and sort of understand, so much that we don't yet, but we're just seeing more and more and more of the wisdom by which God created the world. When you're watching the television documentaries about animals or plants or whatever it may be, and the brilliant things that we see, marvel at God's wisdom. It's everywhere. See it. See wisdom, CV. And having seen wisdom's brilliance, seek wisdom. That's the sort of point, isn't it, of what's here. Find wisdom, verse 13. Take hold of wisdom, verse 18. Hold fast to wisdom, verse 18. And then, thankfully, John did read on, because verse 21 onwards just flows out of that. The Father readdresses the Son and says, do not let wisdom and understanding out of your sight. Don't let them out of your sight. Pursue them. Find, apparently, the word find in Hebrew implies an aggressive search. That squirrel we mentioned last week. Search for wisdom. Someone mentioned to me, again, just in reflecting on the passage, the idea of a hunter and a prey. So if you are watching those nature documentaries, there's that something that happens, isn't it? As the hunter spots the prey, there's something in the eyes. If you're from many years ago, if you're a Gladiators fan who had a gladiator called Hunter, and they used to play hang tough. Do you remember that? Like these lights, it's as if there was a rope and a ring, and they would the contestant just had to hang there till the time ran out. But the hunter, the gladiator, would swing on the rings and look to move in the direction. And once the sort of swing of the thing was going and the gladiator knew they were going to capture their prey, see the eyes, the focus. Seek wisdom's brilliance. If God, by wisdom, has created this world, then seek it. Don't rest till you find it. If God can do this universe with his wisdom, what can he do in your life by that same wisdom? And as we take hold of it, verse 18, we will experience God's wisdom. She is like a tree of life to those who take hold of her. Trees in Proverbs are that symbol of life. It reminded me actually of Psalm 1. Let me just read this to you as we finish. Blessed is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked or stand in the way of sinners or keep the company of mockers. But blessed is the person whose delight is in the law of the Lord, who meditates on his law day and night. That person is like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, whose leaf does not wither. Whatever they do prospers. I think that's the experience that's ahead for us as we pursue wisdom, as we find wisdom, as we hold fast to wisdom. We will be like that tree whose roots are deep into an ever sort of nourishing stream from God himself, and whose fruit then is produced, who's yielded, whose leaf is strong, doesn't wither, and everything they do prospers. So I'll leave you with the thought this morning. Take wisdom as your coach. Take wisdom as the one that will guide you and instruct you and shape you, just as the South African rugby players and cricketers at the minute all have their coaches, mind coaches, body coaches, tactical coaches. Take wisdom as your coach, and the Lord will lead you to a fruitful life. We should leave it there, and we'll get back into it in a couple of weeks' time. Thanks, Lou.